Hello, my name's Karl Greenwood, rider confidence coach, hypnotherapist and performance horse trainer. So I'm here at the Centre of Horseback Combat, which is my stables in Hertfordshire. You can see the arena behind me. We're currently in July 2019. We've just had the hottest day of the year, which is why I've got a gazebo up, because even yesterday no one could even take any instruction whilst they were melting under the sun. So we had to make sure that there's various bits of shade everywhere. Today's a very different affair. It's nice and cool. In fact, it's even raining, which is kind of nice. So I'm in Hertfordshire. We're not far from Luton Airport, so you can hear aeroplanes going across every now and then. And every now and then I like to make a little YouTube video called Referendum Week. Sometimes it's on YouTube, sometimes it's on Facebook, depends where we are. So, Referendum Week. The reason why I'm inspired to do that is because we are at the point this week Boris Johnson has just become Prime Minister. I'm saying nothing. And so I got inspired to do Referendum Week. The referendum is quite simple. What's your biggest issue with horses? What's your biggest issue with horses? Biggest issue? No, it doesn't have to be a problem. You could be having a great time and want to share that. But people generally like to put their problems. So there we go. So this is Referendum Week, day one. And we'll just have a look. I've got a phone here with the replies. Let's see what it says. So, first reply I see. How did I phrase this? I don't. Okay, yes, your biggest issue, and this is from Melanie, the inevitability of spooking and shying. If you're used to my work at all, you'll know that I'm pretty straightforward about things. And I've written a book called Control Your Stress and Enjoy Your Horse. It does exactly what it says on the tin. It's about that thick. You can do it in 2 hours. And what it does is it helps you control your stress and enjoy your horse. I've also made various videos that go around, some of them brilliantly funny and some of them trying to be funny and not very funny, but there you are, you've got to try, haven't you? So you might have seen my videos, you might have read my book, there we are, and you'll see that I am fairly straightforward about things, somewhat old-fashioned even, but there we are, bluff old traditionalist. So spooking and shying, I've addressed this lots of times and it is always the same answer. I have had a huge amount of success in spooking, shying, young horses dropping a shoulder and spinning, rearing, bucking, by using an Australian stock saddle. An Australian stock saddle, in fact I think they're just called stock saddles now, they're based on an English saddle and they've got pulleys, like two stabilizers in front of your thighs. They don't particularly interfere with rising trot or anything like that. And they keep you in the saddle. They've got huge cantles at the back, so they really secure you in. These are the saddles that the Australian stockmen use for swinging cows around their heads or something like that. And they're just fabulous. They keep you locked in and it's very tricky to fall out of them at all. You're not falling to the side, you're not falling to the back because of these things holding you in. They're based on an English saddle, so they're measured the same way as English are. You get them in 17-inch medium or wide or whatever. So it's all very familiar. They're based on an English tree, not a Western tree. Some of them have a American horn placed on them as well, but that's to cater to the American market. It's not that it's a Western saddle. And that's an extra handle to hang on to if you've got a young horse that drops and spins. So I've got a little story. If there's any thought that this horse might drop and spin and get me off again, I don't want a horse to drop and spin and get me off more than 3 times, because then it's starting to learn how to get me off, and then we're getting into a different area of psychology which I don't really want to go to if I've just got a young horse that's not got into the habit of trusting me yet and is just taking its own initiative at pheasants or whatever. So if there's, or for that matter, if I've been injured, Not that I have been injured on a horse, but if I was, I wouldn't want to fall off, or any other reason why I must not fall off. So there you are. Get stock saddle is the short answer. Told you I was straightforward. One of the things that helps me be straightforward is the fact that I've got 13 horses. I've got a show that goes out, the International Cossacks show. Look it up, internationalcossacks.co.uk, or put International Cossacks into YouTube and you'll see the shows that we do. So we've got 12 horses and we've got another 5 horses that aren't ours. So that's a lot of horses. So there you go. And I don't have time to mess around. So if a horse is dropping and spinning and I need to teach that horse to trust me, it's no good me dropping on the deck and then running after it over and over again. That's not going to make the horse feel very trusting at all. I need to stay on. I need to not be worried about falling off, so not pull on the reins and clamp on with my legs because I'm worried. And a stock saddle allows me to do that. Well, I've never used a Western saddle, but I imagine a Western saddle will lock you in a similar fashion. So, for example, we had this young horse. Now, we got this lovely, lovely black horse. It was absolutely beautiful. It was called Black Beauty. I was never going to have a horse called Black Beauty, so I renamed it Vader. So I was on Vader, and he was a long, gangly young horse. So I was on Vader, and we were out in the country lanes, and we came to a crossroads out in Somerset. Anyone who lives near Somerset, it was just by the Rusty Axe pub. But there we are. And we came out to this T-junction, and down this road came this car. So we're standing there, I'm waiting for the car, and on top of the car I can see a roof rack, and it's got suitcases on it, and it's coming closer and closer, and these suitcases are covered by a flippy flappy plastic. Yeah, it's been bungeed on, and this plastic was going, and I saw it and I thought, this is going to be interesting. Come whatever I do, I'm sitting there at my junction, whatever I do, I'm going that way. I don't know if I'm going to the right and that way, I don't know if I'm going to the left and that way, but I'm going that way. So we're sitting there, and I've got my stock saddle on. So because I've got my stock saddle on, I don't clamp on, frighten the horse even worse with this flippy flat plastic. I don't pull on the reins. Okay, and this car comes past, and sure enough I go, and we're headed that way. I don't know if we turn to the left, I don't know if we turn to the right, but because I didn't clamp on, we could go at a gallop for a few yards, and then I can bring it into a canter for a few yards as if I meant to, and then I could bring it into a trot as if I meant to, and bring it into a walk as if I meant to, and bring it into a stop. So that horse never thought I'm galloping against Karl's wishes, I'm fighting him, because as soon as it turned and was going, I was going like I meant to do that. Yeah, I meant to do that, I promise I did. So there was never that conflict and that anxiety and that whoa, stop, and oh no, I want to run away from the flippy flat plastic, and that whole war that you could lose, and then you've undermined the horse's trust as well. So yeah, sure enough, we're galloping along, and I'm like, yeah, gallopy, gallopy, not very far. Let's try canter, 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 not very far. Let's try a trot, and walk and stop. The horse never knew that I didn't mean to do that. But it was only possible because I had this Australian stock saddle on. The answer to your question is, the stuff is out there. The equipment has been created. You don't have to sit in an English easy out. And if you know that you're going to be secure in the saddle, you're not going to be scared of the bucking and the shying and the spooking. It's just part of having a horse, and the less that you're scared and the more you can just drive on, the happier your horse is going to be, with your leadership as well. And it's another example of how when trouble comes to visit, best thing to do is to listen to the human. So there we are. Personally, I also get a great deal of stability during spooking and shying by standing tall in my stirrups. This is something that we have to do for horse archery, because if you stand tall in your stirrups with the whole horse and your legs away from the horse, you're in effect got your legs on these two platforms that's that wide. If you sit in a slightly frightened position with your feet coming off the stirrups, you've only got the very top of the saddle, which is about that wide, where your bum is. So if the horse spooks that much, you're coming off. But if you've got platforms that wide that you're standing on, and the horse spooks that much, you're probably still on those platforms. So I have a great deal. And another thing that you can do is desensitize your horse to having its mane grabbed, or the strap that you got around its neck. And it's not for novices to have a strap around your neck. Sensible. But whatever you do, make sure your horse is absolutely desensitized to that. That is very common, to either grab that bit of mane or grab that OS strap. You can guess what OS stands for. And there we are. Which also means learn to ride one-handed, so that your other hand can now I'm standing on two stirrups, and I've got hold of something, and I'm riding one-handed, steering the horse. I'm so stable. I mean, I've got it in 3 points. So there we go. There's two options to deal with the spooking and the shying. Works for me. Okay, what other questions did we get to the referendum? Let's have a little look. What is your main issue with horses? Okay, from Freddie, we've got finding the time and the courage. Finding the time and the courage. Well, finding the time, we all know that. We all know that. And we all know that it's possible to sit down and revise your timetable in a sensible way to get the time that you need to do something. Now, ultimately, that might mean getting up earlier in the day, which might mean going to bed earlier at night. Sorting out your timetable is something that can be done, but it requires planning. It's not going to fall into it accidentally. If you get up and you're not watching the clock going, I must leave the house by 20 past, then obviously you're going to leave the house when the hoovering's done and the washing up's done and the dog's been fed, and that's how we lose time. If you want to get something done, then that's down to the discipline of making a timetable and sticking to it. This is why when we were at school, you had your timetable, you had your lessons, and the bell rang, and then you went to your next lesson and you went in and you sat down and you were ready. Timetables do take discipline, I'm sorry to say, and they take logical thought. They don't just fall in on their own. I do know this, I do understand. When I was learning to ride, particularly when I was learning to do shows, I had to get up before work, and if I just did 20 minutes, that was 20 minutes that I otherwise wouldn't have done. And so I used to get up 5:30, get down the stables for 6, muck out the stables, do my 20 minutes, pack up, get back for 7 in time to have my breakfast and start work at 8. It just took time. It just took time. And there we are. However, I had a rider confidence course yesterday, and I was explaining this to somebody. And I was saying, this is the photo of me doing that particular trick that I was learning. It's called Roman riding. You stand on the back of some horses, and there we are. To learn that trick, I had to get up at 5:30 for 6 months. 12 years ago. To be honest, right now, I don't begrudge that 6 months, 12 years ago. I've forgotten what it feels like. But that was my investment. If you want to move forward, make that investment. It's not just money with horses. You're making an investment, and you've got a contract as well. You've got a contract with the horse. The horse has asked you whether you're going to look after it and do the best for it, and you've said yes. Nobody got a horse and said, I promise you that I'm going to treat this horse badly. But if you're not teaching that horse how to be a good horse in human society, how to have manners, how to have a value, how to behave with people, then should you ever give up that horse, then that horse, if it has no manners, will go to its next home. It'll try there for Pennyworth, and then the next home, and then the next home, and then the next home, and it will be one of these evergreen horses that just goes from home to home to home to home to home, never knowing what's required of it. If, on the other hand, you do take getting up at 5 o'clock 6 months ago, that's it, for 6 months 12 years ago, you will then have a horse that, should you give up that horse, it will have manners, understand what's needed of it, and it will go to one home and it will stay there happy because it's a good horse. There we go. So you have got a contract with the horse that if it requires you to go to bed earlier and maybe not stay up and watch Britain's rubbishest car crashes or whatever you watch it in the evening after the news, but actually to have some discipline and go to bed, get up earlier and do those 20 minutes, then you'll have a good horse. And as time goes on, that timetable that we were worried about drifts off. I mean, the horse I've got in mind now that I was getting up for, we've still got it, Niagara, bless his little socks, little daisy chain maker. But the timetable is nothing. We just go, we get him, we do it, we move on. It's a super relationship, absolutely super. So the timetable has faded to almost nothing. It's just pleasure now because the timetable was put in all that time ago. So there you are. So the answer, in my bluff old traditionalist way, is a pen, some paper, and a plan. So there you go. So the second part of your question was courage. Courage. This is a big question, and at the same time it's not a big question at all. I've got a phrase that says, we are not brave, we are trained. We are not brave, we are trained. If you want to see our show reel, it's on internationalcossacks.co.uk. You will see what you will regard as extreme riding there. Extreme riding. Very courageous, you'll think. Very brave, very foolhardy. I don't know what you'll think. But whatever we do, we're trained. And we don't move on until we are trained. So we're not brave people. I'm certainly not a brave person. But I am trained. And I train in the next step. And when I've got that, I train in the next step. And when I've got that, I train in the next step. So when I was getting up at 5:30 in the morning, learning this trick, I was learning it at stand and then at walk. And it took months because the size of the step, I call it my bite sizes, was so small that they took very little courage at all. Very little courage at all. I have people who say I never feel safe on my horse. And it's like, right, so are you telling me that you couldn't climb up a mountain block, sit on it for 10 seconds and then climb back down? Now, to be fair, some people have got themselves in such a state that that is a step further than they need to be. They need to go back to long reining and learning that the horse isn't going to do this, that or the other. But an average person, what they were trying to say was, I feel nervous doing my little jumps or whatever, but they are perfectly, I mean, it's ridiculously fine. I had a lady who was, she used to jump reasonable heights, and then she lost her confidence. And I said, well, you've got to get it down to bite sizes, the small bite sizes, so that you don't need courage. I've really got no time for people who say, you need to pull on your brave pants. I've got no time for that at all, pulling on your brave pants. What a stupid thing to say. If you're going to be brave and go against something you're afraid of, yes, you might pluck up the courage to get over that jump 2 or 3 times, but you're learning nothing. You're just learning how to shit yourself. Jump a jump. No. So I've even had people all the way back to laying a jump hole on the floor and walking over it. I mean, super easy. So when you're choosing your bite size, the size of the lesson that you're going to do, you need to bear in mind that the panic button in your brain, that part of your brain which is primitive, which holds the flight and fight responses, your panic, your anger, your depression, all those sort of things, that has the processing power of a 7-year-old. However old you are, 77, 107, that part of your brain has the processing power of a 7-year-old. So when you choose your bite size, you need to think that you are being extremely understanding to a 7-year-old and having them take the next bite size. Now, the fact that you used to be confident at jumping so high is entirely irrelevant. Just as if a 7-year-old used to be confident and then something happened and they lost their confidence, you would then, in an understanding way, break that down and say, it's fine. You wouldn't spend your time going, you used to be able to do it, stop being so stupid, everybody's laughing at you, you're just an absolute idiot, now go and jump it. Well, I don't teach kids, to be honest, but I'm fairly sure that's not what you do. No, you break it down into bite sizes that a 7-year-old can cope with. You go through those, you master it, you move on. So your bite sizes might be do point A for a month until you're bored. So going from the excitement of something new down to a level of boredom is a bite size in itself, and then you take the next bite size in the size that a 7-year-old can cope with, and you move forward incrementally. Now there's 2 rules to it. 2 rules. You move forward. It's no good staying where you are, repeating the same exercises over and over and saying, I'm just going to stay here with no plan for moving forward in a reasonable amount of time. You do need to follow a plan irrelevant to your negative brain which says, I might just stay here because I feel like staying here. Action beats anxiety. So if you're stepping over your poles and you step over them and look at the next jump and you absolutely focus on the line that you're taking, that focus, that thinking will occupy your brain, and the anxiety that you feel won't have a chance to get hold. If, however, you do your exercises whilst thinking, what if, and you're not thinking about your curve and you're not thinking about the next goal because you're thinking about what if A, B, C, D, well, what you're thinking about is your choice. So if you absolutely, with a laser focus, do your circle, do your jump pole, do your figure 8, absolutely then anxiety gets knocked to the side. Action beats anxiety, and the action should be inner progress. If you give yourself 3 weeks doing the same thing, that's it, and then you move on. That's how you progress. But you don't pull on your brave pants and go charging at the same thing over and over again, where you've got as equal a chance at failing at it as you have at succeeding. Progress doesn't happen by chance. Progress happens by planning and executing. Now, if you plan and then you spend your time watching Britain's favourite car crashes and then don't get up and don't execute, it's not going to happen, is it? So those two, the time, finding the time and finding the courage, are inextricably linked. You find the time with the discipline, and you find the courage. Well, you don't find the courage. I don't want courage. You don't need the courage. You need the time and the discipline. Does that make sense? Good. I hope it does. Okay then, I'm going to do one more question and then I'll ring off for today and we'll see what questions we've got tomorrow. Okay, let's have a look. Next question. What's your big issue in referendum week? My own riding ability. And then we've got somebody else. That's Claire and Janice. My own riding ability. Now, I'll probably get back to that one actually and ask about their instructors. My own riding ability. If your riding ability isn't as you want and you want to progress, you are going to have to get a teacher. I'm learning Russian at the moment. It's tricky. I have to go to the lessons. If I don't go to the lessons, I'm not going to learn Russian. There we are. Anything, you learn something. If you've got a skill and you want to take it further, get some lessons. I get an awful lot of people who haven't got an instructor, or they've got the wrong instructor, or they've got their friend instructing them, or they've got an instructor and it's a good instructor but they don't go to the lessons. Or your riding ability, either be happy where it is or get some instruction. But don't be unhappy and not get the instruction. What do you think's going to happen? Your riding ability comes from your instruction. And usually there's then a response going, I haven't got time. Just dealt with that. I haven't got the money. Well, there we go. With money, you'll find that people find the money that they have to have rather than find the money that they want. So if your lesson with your instructor isn't a priority, if it's not, I have to have this lesson, I have to have my instruction for the good of my horse, so that it becomes a good horse and doesn't go from home to home to home to home if ever I give up horses. Whatever your motivation is, I have to have that lesson. To do right by this horse, I have to have this lesson. I have to have this instructor. I have to change my instructor. I have to. Then you will find the money. People always do. When there's something that you want to do, there is a way to do it, without a doubt. Now, the trouble is people prioritise other things and they're like, well, you know, I'll get my friend Dave to just look over once in a while, and then Dave's busy and it turns out that Dave hasn't been up for 6 months to help you out. And have you got an instructor? Yes. When was your last lesson? Oh, 2006. But there we go. So it's the time, it's the money, or it's the self-esteem to ask for help, to be seen, to ask for help. Well, that's a different issue altogether. The what other people think issue comes up quite a lot. It's like, I don't have the self-confidence to be vulnerable, is what we're going, or to take that knock in status. The way I see it, when people haven't got the self-esteem to be vulnerable or take that knock in status, is again to look at the end result, to look at the goal that you want to do. If your goal is to go galloping on the beach, then come the day that you are galloping on the beach, any insignificance that you might have felt, or any humiliation that you might have felt, or anything, when you are at your goal, the mishaps of the past fade into nothing. When I'm at my goal of being in my show, the mishaps of the past, having to get up at 5:30 in the morning and having to do all that, it wasn't very nice. Having to learn how to roam and ride in front of other people who could do it, and being all over the place, and having to take that humiliation, every humiliation, and for that matter every congratulation, every triumph, every disaster, every victory, every defeat, all went up to make the rungs of the ladder which took me to where I want to be when I'm at my goal in the future. And when you look back, you see the view. You don't see the ladder. You see the view. When you climb a mountain, you look out at the view. You don't look down at the boulders. When you're looking at the mountain, it's also a good idea to not look at the boulders. But there you are. There you are. When you get to where you're going, those humiliations, insignificances, imaginary attacks on your status will have made the necessary rungs to getting you where they are. You will not get to where you are without them, without the criticisms, without the petty people chucking in their full penneth worth. That is the rungs of the ladder that get you to where you're going. So there we go. Anyway, referendum week is still going, and I don't see why we don't make it permanent. So put a comment underneath if you've got your single issue. Doesn't have to be a problem. It can be something that you're enjoying. I'd be quite happy to hear both. Then bob it in the comments underneath and we'll keep the conversation going. I'm Karl Greenwood. If you would like my free download on the three main... Look, I couldn't work out three then. the three main issues facing horse riders: bolting, bucking and rearing. I've made a free download which will wing its way through the internet. All you need to do is click on the link, which is going to be somewhere around this video, and there you go. You'll get that, and it'll be an enormous help. There you are. I am Karl Greenwood. Thanks for listening.